In the name of God, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for this introduction, and I would like to thank the IISS and the Kingdom of Bahrain for the warm welcome. I would like to thank you for being keen on having Syria at this platform. I would like as well to thank all the excellencies who are with us today. Thank you to the delegates and to the audience. If we go back to some weeks before being liberated from the Assad regime last year, in order for me to show the importance and the volume of the transition that we are living now in Syria. So in October 2024, the Kingdom of Bahrain had announced the arrest of the seizure of 130,000 Captagon pills, and in fact this was the Syrian regime that has transformed Syria into a narco state that has affected the entire area from Saudi Arabia to Italy, with this Captagon pandemic that has really created the most important catastrophe at the humanitarian level in the entire area. Syria has become a regional platform for crises, conflicts, and threats. At that time, we were planning how we will be liberating our population from dictatorship, from this oppression, and to see how can we change the face of Syria and change its image in order for it to be decent in the world. So it was not only a vision of a military, it was a liberation image that will be liberating the Syrian population, giving them opportunity, enabling and empowering them in their country, giving them the possibility to live up to the aspirations of the Syrian population. And we try to see how can we really benefit by the physical and moral characteristics of Syria and its presence in the Levant. So in order to see how can we optimize the capacities of the Syrian population, this population that is really smart, very successful abroad, and sometimes failing in their own state. So since 2024, October 2024 till date, it's 11 months, but it was a short period, but with huge challenges that we have faced in this very short period of time. We had lots of hope, we had lots of feelings, mitigated feelings with hope, pain, aspiration. Consequently, this period of time is a time of pride for us, because all the promises that we had talked about during the first month were more or less achieved. 90% of what we talked about was achieved. So we had the national dialogue, the government, the constitutional declaration, the openness to the neighborhood, the foreign policies that are based on development, peace, giving the opportunity for our population to reconstruct and rebuild their country, attracting foreign investment, showing Syria in a new face and a correct one, and dealing with the destructive consequences that had completely changed the face of our country in the past. Also, we had another vision that was based on three main principles, intertwined principles. We have started with the local stability at the local, regional, and neighborhood level. So now Syria has more or less acceptable stability. It is also a partner. It is a regional partner with the neighborhood, especially with regards to fighting drugs, and also is an international partner in dealing with the international threats that are being faced by the entire world. Syria is playing a real important role at this level. The second principle that we're basing ourselves on, and the second pillar of our transitional vision, is the balanced diplomacy. We do not want Syria to be based on polarization as it was previously under the Assad regime, so to be with people against others. And as you know, maybe safeguarding this balance is something that is very difficult. It is very rare in our situation. We are trying as much as we can to be at equal distance with everybody, respecting everybody, holding relationships based on collaboration, cooperation, trade relations, openness, and being peaceful and spreading peace in the region and in the world. We were able to establish a state far from the confessional denominations that we used to have previously with minorities and majorities in the country. We want the law to be the main balance, to be the judge of everybody, regardless the religion and regardless the background, because Syria is a diversified country at the cultural, ideological and religious level. And I think that this diversification is a main pillar of our development, and there is a main link amongst the population of Syria. So in fact, this period, we know that it will not be flowery everywhere and easy and secure. No, we know that we have faced lots of challenges and even lots of tests. Previously, we talked about this. We did not surrender towards these challenges. We were committed to justice. We have established the National Committee for the Disappeared in order to solve this problem. And in Syria, we have more than 250,000 disappeared. And also now we are working on transitional justice. We have established the National Committee for Transitional Justice, and it is the one that we're relying on for justice and truth to reach people and for us to protect our population, to protect the victims from surrendering or getting into vendetta, as we have seen this in some other areas after the toppling of regimes, where we have the states getting into revenge, and vendetta. This is why we are resorting to the law in order to protect our population. At the end, we have had legislative elections. Of course, we have many challenges, but in fact, they are not hindering this process. We hope that the first parliamentary session in Syria, a transparent, parliament elected by the local population. So we hope that it will be held in November very soon, and in a way that will be, of course, living up to the aspirations and the interests of our populations. Of course, this is not theoretical. We have lots of teams working on these issues since day one. We also want to confirm that our aspirations and our visions within this track will not stop. So we did not reach what we are aspiring for. This is only the start for the Syria of the future, the new Syria. We want Syria to be an efficient, effective state, far from any foreign interference, without any regional or international polarization, a state that is not a source of concern. We want people, whenever they talk about Syria, we want them to give the positive adjectives. Asking about the timer, I think. At the end, I would like to tell you that from this stage, we are extending our hands to our partners and our brothers in the region in order for this to reflect not only instability and prosperity for our country, but also the goodness and the benefit and peace of the entire region. Thank you very much.
You've got a lot of questions too, but take the ones that you most feel must
I have
be
a lot of questions. I will try to answer some of them.
First of all, we have lots of topics that were discussed, and I think that they require longer sessions to be dealt with. But what I can answer here is the following. With regards to our relationship with the neighborhood, when we started building the new Syria, it was based on collaboration and cooperation with everybody, and to redress all the problems that we have inherited from the previous Syria. Namely, when we went to Lebanon, So this was our main objective, to rebuild our relationship with Lebanon based on mutual respect, on collective construction. And I think that the opportunity that we have now in Syria is an opportunity that needs to be grasped by Lebanon, for Lebanon to rebuild itself and to benefit by the economic openness that we have now in Syria. We are ready to stand by Lebanon in the way that they choose, in a way that does not encroach on the sovereignty of the state, because Lebanon is a very important state for us. So we also have some other political alliances on an economic basis, because when we say that we do not want Syria to be polarized, we do not want Syria to be a front against any other side, we do not want Syria to be a point of concern. This is something that supports our economic vision, because today we are building, we want Syria to be a safe place, a trade safe place, and we want it to be a corridor between the East and the West. We want it to be a place for trade, for business, for investment. We want to rebuild our country through investments and not only through aids, through humanitarian aids, international summits and conferences for the rebuilding of Syria. Syria only needs the hindrances to be lifted, the sanctions to be lifted, and I think that this will help Syria to reconstruct and to rebuild progressively. Now, with regards to Iran, we have a long story with Iran, and I do not know that their policy in Syria and the region was a correct one. It was against the Syrian population. They have interfered in the war Asaad all along the 14 years. We do not have a problem with Iran as a state in Tehran, themselves in their state, and ourselves in our state. So this interference is the problem that we had with Iran. An interference that has really increased the sufferings of the Syrian populations. Today, Syria is now void of all these interferences. Now, here I would like to link this to the mentality of Israel in the region. I think that any state that wants to build its foreign policies and its military basis on dogmatic basis, as Iran was stating that the road to Jerusalem passes through the Syrian states, and Israel thinks that the path of David passes through Syria. I think that this will not lead to any stability or peace in the area. Syria is for the Syrians. It is not a passage for anybody. It is a meeting point for all these civilizations. It has its sovereignty, and we do not accept any interference in Syria. Now, with regards to the Abrahamic Accords with Israel, this is something that has not been discussed, and this is not new. We have already said this. There is a provocative case in Syria. We have Israeli provocative attacks on a daily basis in Syria. And since December 8 till date, we have more than 1,000 raids against Syria. We also have an incursion and in the buffer zone and the 74 area, and we have also another incursion on the borders of Syria. Consequently, these security incidents with Israel are not acceptable anymore. They cannot justify their policy. Consequently, we are seeing an expansionist policy by Israel, while we are committing to the Convention or to the Accords of 1974, and we want an accord that guarantees peace and security between us and Israel. We do not want to enter into a new war, and Syria is not a place that threatens Israel anywhere and in any place. So consequently, the security brilliance that Israel was talking about that existed before October 8, I think that after October 8 it was completely removed from Syria, and we do not have any justification for them to attack Syria, especially that now Syria is only focusing on reconstruction. So today we have tracks, we have negotiations that want to reach a security agreement that, of course, does not affect the 1974 agreement, nor accept a new de facto situation of, in the south for Israel. So we want to have an agreement that allows Syria to rebuild itself, and I think that the Israeli government's policy is against the American policy in Syria, and this is why there are lots of efforts in order to reach, the withdrawal of the Israelis from the Syrian territories to the pre-8 December borders. Now, with regards to our visit, to China, of course, it comes within the series of visits that we are paying since December 8 till date. In fact, these are visits in order to show the new image of Syria, to open the doors for investments, and to benefit by the help of everybody at this new stage. Consequently, there were some security concerns by China. We have tried to explain them and to erase them. We want to have with China a very good relationship. This is a very important relationship for us. Now, with regards to the lifting of these sanctions, there are still sanctions, amongst them the Caesar Act and some other laws that have considered or classified Syria as a terrorist sponsoring state since 1974. And there was also the sanctions that were imposed on Syria because Syria has supported some specific trends and policies, and now these policies have completely disappeared, so there is no justification to have any sanctions against Syria. Consequently, how can the world offer anything to Syria if the international community does not lift the sanctions against Syrians? And the Syrians will launch the reconstruction process themselves. But we need, of course, to remove all these hindrances and obstacles. Now, our visit to Washington next week, so the first week of November, comes within the same context. Syria is open to everybody. President Al-Shar'a will be at the White House at the start of November, and of course this is a historic visit. It is the first visit of a Syrian president, so it's the first Syrian president who enters the White House since more than 80 years. And of course we have lots of topics that are dealt with, will be dealt with, of course, lifting the sanctions, a new chapter between Syria and the United States. We want a very good relationship with the United States. We want also help and assistance in the IISS. So this is why any assistance with regards to this issue, we will be needing their support. ISIS is not only the responsibility of Syria. This is an international threat that cannot be only dealt with by the Syrian government. This is why we need the international support to face the ISIL or Daesh, because they are against the reconstruction of Syria. And I think that we will have lots of points that will be discussed between during this visit, especially, of course, the rebuilding of Syria. Now, the change that we have had in Syria is more or less similar to the change that happened after the Cold War ended. So there is a new Middle East that started with Syria, with the toppling of the Assad regime, and now, of course, we have these new relationships and these new tendencies towards Syria to rebuild relations with the US, the EU, and all the other states. So this is a new tendency that wants to put Syria in a new place where it can rebuild, reconstruct, for it to be a good front between the East and the West, far from any polarization. Consequently, these visits come within the same context. Now, with regard to the role of Turkey in Syria. Turkey is amongst the states that are interested by Syria from different aspects. Previously, Turkey looked at some areas, especially in the north of Syria, was a vision of national security, and of course this is important for Turkey and we cannot disregard this. And whenever we say that Syria is not a threat to any state for the region, this of course concerns Turkey, because we consider them as a partner and we do not want Syria to be a threat for Turkey. So what we were able to achieve was changing the approach and the vision that was established previously. With the SDF, we have tried to change the approach into a common agreement on the 10th of March. So we are holding regular meetings last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
يعني yes. يعني هناك تفاهم.
So we have lots of agreements and we have changed this approach. We passed it from a military approach into a dialogue approach. We want the dialogue to be amongst the Syrians. So there is no, of course, march from Syria to Israel. It is only an attempt to stop the Israelis' attacks against Syria. So we are trying to have an opportunity, an inspiring opportunity for us to build a nation that is dreamt of by all the Syrians. So we want this diplomacy to succeed over, their provocations.
And